And here's me, and oh my gosh, that glare is horrible. Okay. Alright, I'm going to try to remember to look at the camera and not my webcam. I even have a sticky note on my webcam that says to look up. So we'll see how well this works. I'm gonna jump over here. Okay. So, how was your week? I hope you're all doing really well. I hope your day was really good. Today was the first day that I got to have off, scheduled off of work for family day in over a month. Um, Almost 2 months because even in March, I I knew I was so far behind. I was trying to do it, but because of technical difficulties and a bunch of other crap, I got over 2 months behind on almost every single project. But uh, the last 2 weeks of March, that was resolved. So over the last 2 weeks of March, I hustled big time and worked my ass off, and I got my schedule to where I wasn't 2 months behind and over. I was about 2 weeks behind, if that, maybe a little bit less. So I did a lot of hustling in 2 weeks. Well, in April, I had a shit ton of goals I set for myself to get caught up on all of my projects. And when I got to reset my Kanban board on Saturday, and then, or I reset it Friday evening because I had a babysit Saturday. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it. I ended up taking like 3 or 4 hours to reset my Kanban board because I have a whole 12-month spread. I don't do the whole uh doing done thing. It's just 12 months of the biggest goals for that month, and I just take it off the board when it's done, and I have an old coffee can I put them in, and I got a good bit of goals in here already. I don't break it down like some people do with every little thing that they need to do, but to accomplish those goals, because then there's way too many things on the board and I look at it and I get overwhelmed and then I want to give up before I even start. So this is the system that I have found that works for me. Um, so I got to reset my Kanban board Friday evening, and then I set up my planner last night with our plan with me um, for all of May and like the month spread for May and in the first week of April. I mean, first week of May. Goodness, April's done. And I am proud to say that after resetting my Kanban board and reevaluating my goals and where I'm at, on some of my projects, I am about a month and a half ahead. On other projects, I'm about 2.5 weeks ahead. But on most of my projects, I'm a month and a half ahead of schedule now because I hustled my ass off over the last month and a half. So I'm super proud of myself. Excuse me. It wasn't until I started setting this up and getting it ready for after my daughter went to bed that my allergies kicked in big time. And I guess it's just where I haven't really been in my room most of today. And this tree right outside my bedroom window sucks so bad. It is beautiful when it blooms, but it kills my allergies. and they're all over this property. There's even one down at the bottom of the hill by the bus stop. So, uh, so my allergies are kicking in out of nowhere to where I went into a sneezing fit and I just have an itchy nose now. But so today was the first time that I was able to schedule a full day off for a family day. So this month I am retaking my family days and I'm only going to be working Monday through Saturday. Um my old schedule, I worked Monday through Friday. Sundays were family days for me and my daughter and our cats. And Saturdays, I would spend the first half of the day on marketing, promotions, updating websites, and stuff like that, and creating the social media posts that I would post throughout the week. But it would take me like 3 hours to create those posts that I was going to post on social media throughout the week. And then I would have to email them to myself, and neither my computer or my phone wanted to hold any extra storage. So it was beginning to be a problem. Plus, I was gaining new followers on my platforms, but not enough to, I can't think of the word. I was spending 3 to 4 hours every Saturday making those posts. That's not on, I mean, that's not including all the hours I spent on updating my websites and marketing and promotions and that type of stuff. So the maybe 10 new followers through across all three of my platform social medias that I would get in that week, maybe 10 across all of them, it wasn't, I'm not going to say it's worth it because I still got more followers, but I'm trying to think of the word. It just didn't equal up properly. So I stopped doing those type of posts because it was taking more time than it was worth to create. When I switched to doing more personal posts and I'll just post a spiritual type of picture and say what I need to say, or I'll do reels or whatever. I'm actually throughout April, that's what I've been doing instead of those type of posts. The only time I do like a pre-made post is for like a cover reveal or something. And throughout all of April, that's what I've been doing, and I've gained more followers than I had in March doing all those. So, or in February doing all those. I can't remember if I stopped in February or March. Like I said, I was having a lot of technical issues and my computer wanted to keep overheating and stuff, and now I have a new computer. I have a new camera, even though my camera's lackluster. That's why I do almost all my videos live because it doesn't want. I've been trying to start doing vlogs, and then it loses all the footage, or there's just a black screen for 20 minutes, or no audio, or just random things, and I have no idea why. Oh, so, and I don't think it's something that's going to stop happening. So I decided to switch from doing vlogs until I can afford a good camera instead of just a cheap camera. And I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to do lives or premieres. There's a certain series on my other channel that I'm going to start doing premieres for because it's something that I really don't want to do just straight live, but I would like I haven't done any of the premieres yet since they put it on YouTube. So I would like to try it out and live talk to people, live chat with people in the comments when the video is being made available to everyone. So let's hope that goes well. I have 12 subscribers over there now, and I've only had the platform since January 1st. Still not a lot. I have even less followers over here, but I'm still gaining followers across both platforms on YouTube, and eventually it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's how it's supposed to work. Just on this type of platform where it's a author writerly platform, it is very slow burning. And from my other AuthorTube friends, they all say it's very slow burning. That's why I'm trying to expand my different types of vlogs or lives or whatever with like plan with me's and just other stuff. If you want to see what the other stuff is, you have to go over to my other channel, NL Heiser Writes. I'm sorry. The only time I get a notification or anything on my phone is when I am live or in a Zoom call with my life coach or doing virtual school or virtual therapy with my daughter. Any other time, my phone's silent. But, okay. So we're 12 and a half minutes in. And as I said before, I want the Sunday chats to be slightly different than they have been in the past. Part of the reason why I haven't been doing very many of them lately, besides the fact that I've just been so busy with work that and live writing sprints and stuff that the extra lives most of the time I was just burnt out and tired and I wanted to rest the rest of the night. There's a couple of times last month that was just laziness, but every other time it was just my ass was tired. I wanted to sit on my ass and watch TV or read a book for 30 minutes and take my butt to bed. So that's what I did, so I could at least try to recharge that well a little bit. Um, but starting today, I want to have the Sunday chats be a little bit more in depth and personal than just me sitting here talking for 30-40 minutes about my week and all the shit that's happened or whatever. Um, okay, trying to make sure my face ain't cut off or anything, but I'm still trying to get used to looking at the real camera and not the computer camera. I haven't had a real camera in like 8 years, 9 years. Yeah. Um. Okay. So every week on Sundays, we're going to discuss a new topic. Let me check audio really quick and make sure that you can hear me when I'm talking at this voice. Okay. It's looking like it's still pretty low, so I'm going to speak up a little bit more. Um, so next Sunday is Mother's Day. So I think it would be a really good idea that Sunday's topic next week will be trauma and forgiveness. Um, and you'll see why then. Um, I don't know if I will have the topic ahead of time to be able to tell you every Sunday chat, okay, next week's Sunday chat is going to be about this, or to announce it days ahead of time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I'm not going to put that on my plate to say, I need to know this. No, I'll tell you when I know. um, but this week, today, we're going to talk about anxiety, which I posted that we were going to talk about, but anxiety and panic attacks. I decided to add panic attacks because some people that have never had either believe that they're the same, and they're not. They are very similar, but they usually derive from different triggers, different things, and they feel different. Um, for instance, if there's any men that watch this, I'm sorry if you are sensitive, but it is 2021, and in order to be a supportive man in this world, regardless of whether you're in a relationship or not, you need to get used to the sensitive, taboo topics like periods. It's 2021, man up, or woman up. So, for instance, a difference between anxiety and panic attacks. Anxiety can trigger from periods or PMS every month, and it usually doesn't trigger panic attacks. Now, something about that, if you don't realize that it's anxiety because your cycle's coming, you can think that something's wrong and put yourself into a panic attack. Trust me, I know. I've done it once before I realized that was because bucket periods. um, and now I know when it's about a week before my period's supposed to start that I will get spikes of random anxiety, and it will just hit me out of nowhere. So now I know when to expect it. And also when I get a random spike of anxiety just completely out of the blue, then I could be like, wait, what time of the month is it? Is my cycle starting soon? And then I'll look at my app and I'll be like, oh, yep, that's what it is. And then instantly I'm like, okay, that's what it is. It's just a natural cause I have nothing to do with. I can't stop my anxiety when it's caused by a natural thing in my body and in the universe. I can't stop it. But the recognition that this is what's causing it is from the my body cycle getting ready to start. I know this is what it is nothing else that immediately relieves it. It may take a couple minutes for it to completely fade, but it immediately relieves it. It deconstricts. Is that a word? Deconstricts? What's the opposite word? I don't want to say release again. I'm a writer and words are hard. But yeah, just recognizing that immediately deconstricts my chest and the anxiety starts fading just with recognizing and acknowledging that. Um, Also, the moon cycles. I am very in tune with the universe and the moon cycles, especially from the last 6 months, where my spiritual um, journey has really picked up and my spiritual knowledge has really increased. So now, when there's a full moon or a new moon or fucking Mercury retrograde, anything like that, my anxiety will spike out of nowhere, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll recognize what it is, and the acknowledgement of it immediately deconstricts and lets it fade. But you have to realize those type of things, and it doesn't affect my panic attacks. The natural stuff doesn't affect my panic attacks. It affects my anxiety. Um, I can have anxiety in crowds. Um, I can have anxiety in car rides, depending on the how many really curvy roads, or if the person is driving kind of crazy, or just a number of things. Um, Plus, after a long period of time in a car, I get a little bit car sick. Um, and I think that has to do with the major car wreck I was in when I was a kid. I think it's just a subconscious trigger in my brain, and even though I'm like, we're not wrecking, it still affects my body. Like, my mind tells it to affect my body. That scared the hell out of me. My cat just opened my door just completely wide open. I'm like, um, hey, sissy bear. She's coming to stare at me until she gets her food now. Yeah, I know. And then she just closes her eyes and goes, yeah, I know. So, and there's my other cat hollering. She's a very vocal cat. It can be very annoying sometimes. But, also my anxiety can lead into panic attacks quite often if I don't check it very quick. Um, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I thought about like scripting or giving myself an outline for this, but it's one of those things that I know I wouldn't even look at the paper. So it's best if I just wing it, because I know I'll get there with all the points I want to get to. So, okay. When did my panic attack start? I started having panic attacks when I was um 14, 15 years old. In a way, it started before that, but it wasn't like a full blown panic attack. I grew up in a household where every single day my parents would get into a heated argument, and it would lead into a physical fight with screaming, cussing, hurting each other, throwing each other against the walls, me trying to protect my little sister from being hit or ran over in the process, and keeping her calm and trying to stop her tears every single day since I was about 4. Um, at some point, it got to where anytime anyone raised their voice or yelled at someone, anytime there was a confrontation, I would start physically shaking and just freaking out on the inside and just terrified. Um, Now, I did grow up in an abusive home. Even my parents divorced when I was 10 or 11, or separated when I was 10 or 11. They got divorced later. Um, my mother and my father, when they were together, and when my mother was with her husband, we received abuse from both throughout our lives. But it was never physical abuse when we was growing up with our dad in our home. It was all emotional and mental abuse. And I didn't realize that until many years later when I became an adult. Um, but that's how it started. It started when anytime there was some sort of confrontation, even if it didn't escalate, but 9 times out of 10 it did, because every time we went to a family event, there was a fight that would break out. Every time that my dad would come home from work, they would get into a heated argument and there would be a fight. Um, we spent most of our childhood avoiding the fights. But um, even strangers, if they would get into an argument, even if it wasn't a heated argument and they were just having a confrontation, um, I would start physically shaking. And then when I was 14 or 15, um, long after they were divorced, and we had moved a couple of times with our mother and her husband, um, right before a year or two before I graduated high school, um, things got significantly worse. And so I started having panic attacks. And at the time, I still didn't know that they were panic attacks. I just thought that I was freaking the hell out. Um, I didn't really know what panic attacks were back then. Um, I had I had panic attacks in A school uh, after our boot camp, where we would go to get trained for whatever job we had. And it always came from getting a phone call from my sister and finding out new stuff that happened at home, or my boyfriend who was an asshole getting drunk and being even more of an asshole and breaking up with me out of nowhere. That put me into a major panic attack, and that's the day I started smoking cigarettes. um, which I don't smoke anymore. I've been off cigarettes for like 4 years now. This is like the fifth, not the fifth. This is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've completely quit cigarettes. Um, I mean, like, I don't wean myself off when I quit. I just cold turkey quit, and I don't touch it for like a year or more, depending on what's going on in my life and shit. Um, but this time, I was like, I'm done. I'm not touching it anymore. I I want to be healthier, and I'll get into that later. But um, after I got out of the military and I took my sister in my custody and stuff, my anxiety and panic attacks didn't show their face. I was battling and defeating demons in a sense. Um, or my demons in a sense. And so I guess in a way, my body and mind was like, you're conquering your fears, so you don't have this. But I've had quite a few really toxic relationships along the way. And that was never anxiety and panic attacks. It was just fights. We never got physical. Um, there was one time I tried to get physical. He crossed the line. Um, and it had to do with my little sister. And no, he did not do that. But um, she was in my custody, and he said that I was as crazy as my mother, and I was no longer allowed to make any decisions pertaining to my sister and her life or well being, that he was taking over. We weren't engaged or married or anything else. He was my boyfriend living with us. I had been taken care of and paying for everything for over a year. And he said that. Yeah, that's the that's the first time that I ever physically tried to get at a boyfriend. And thank goodness the people we were renting from at the time, we were renting rooms out of their home. They were really good friends of ours. They separated us before we could touch each other. Thank goodness, because I never wanted to get to that point. I think if you're in a relationship and it gets to the point where you put hands on each other, it's over. Um, but that's a whole nother thing. Uh, a couple years, well, 2 or 3 years after that, um, I had had my daughter. I was a single mom living with my dad, and I had a nightmare reliving an event, something that I will talk about in a later video that I don't really want to talk about yet until the memoir comes out, because let's just say I don't want that to be the first video you hear, and that's something that still hurts. But when it had actually happened, I got more news about my sister, and I had a breakdown because I wasn't there to protect her, and I wasn't yet in a place financially or otherwise that I could go back home and take her and protect her. So I blamed myself. And back then, I was partying a lot. I only ever drank, but um, and I always, still to this day, even though I rarely drink now, I can't afford it, much less that much, and I don't like to get drunk anymore. I don't like the feeling of getting drunk anymore. But back then I used to party all the time, and I would get completely drunk to forget and to relax, because back then I didn't have any real responsibilities. I had a $20 phone card that I had to buy every month, and I was trying to save up money to get a vehicle and to go home and take care of my sister and stuff. But I was also trying to celebrate that I was away from everything for the first time in my life and enjoy myself and let loose. So I would drink with my friends every night. And when I got that phone call and found out what had happened, I started blaming myself for not being there to protect her. I completely broke down. I had a meltdown. And so I drank. I didn't tell anybody what had happened. Back then, I didn't tell anybody anything. I was a fake smile. Um, but I drank, and I drank, and I drank, and I continued to drink until I no longer was thinking about how bad of a big sister I was for not protecting my little sister. And for the first time, I had successfully gotten so drunk that I had to crawl up the stairs to my bedroom. Before that, I've always been the type of person, I still am, that when I'm drunk, no matter how drunk I am, I'm still taking care of everyone else. I'm the responsible one. I could be belligerent drunk, stumbling around, and you can't understand a damn word that I'm saying, but I'm going to make sure that you drink some water and take some Tylenol so you don't have a hangover tomorrow. I'm going to make sure you get to bed okay, and if you look like you're going to get sick, I'm going to hold your hair. I've actually used my fingers to make women throw up before so that they can get sick and get that done so they can just crash out. Um, like I'm legit when I'm talking about I used to party. Like I don't make rookie mistakes. I learn really quick with every aspect of my life. And when it came to partying, I learned all the tricks of the book really fucking quick. Um, so yeah, I haven't had a hangover in like 14 years. And uh usually if there's anything, it's just a dehydrated headache and that's it, and not a real hangover. But anyways, I drank so much that night that I had to crawl up the stairs to my bed, and I passed out for the night. Um and the party had only started a couple hours before that, and I'm usually the last one to go to sleep because I'm making sure everybody else goes to sleep and clean up a little bit. Then I crash, and then I get up and I clean up and I make sure everybody else gets up in time to go out the door for work, and then I get ready and go to work. That was the type of person I was. It's the type of person I am now, except no alcohol. Um, but when I had the nightmare, I relived what happened completely. And when it had happened, I didn't have the mental space to deal with that at the time. There was nobody I could talk to. I wasn't even completely positive it had happened because I was so drunk. And so I pushed it down deep. I'm really good at that. For my entire life until the last 2 years, Well, I started coming out of it the last like 6 years, but until the last 2 years, I've been bottling up all of my emotions, pushing it down deep, and not expressing it. Because when I was growing up, I couldn't express it, or I was scared to. So I would bottle up all of my emotions, and when that happened, I pushed it down deep because I could not deal with that at that time. I At that point, that's when I decided I was going to stop drinking so much and I was going to do what I planned to do and get home and take care of my sister. Um, so in a way, it saved me. But I had pushed it down deep inside and forced myself to forget about it. You can actually do that, especially if you make sure you're busy with everything else and taking care of everyone else on the planet before yourself. That's how I've always been. Well, after I had my daughter, she started having issues at 6 months. And then she was diagnosed at 2.5 years. And there were so many therapists and specialists and doctors, and my family was treating me like garbage and treating me like I was the worst mom in the world. They were in denial that anything wrong with my daughter, which nothing's wrong with her. She's perfect the way she is. But they was in denial about the diagnosis altogether. They were just like, "Oh, she'll grow out of it," and that's not how it's gonna be. I mean, there was family members, her own biological father, that asked if she was one of them retards. That's why I absolutely hate that word. My daughter's perfect. But I had so much on my plate. I had just became a stay-at-home mom because I had to stay at home to take care of my daughter. That was the only way she was going to get all the therapies and specialists and everything she needed. I couldn't work anymore. And when I quit my job, she progressed. In 2 weeks, she went from not even being able to do a army crawl to standing and walking, holding onto furniture. She had progressed that much in 2 weeks that she wasn't able to do before, and it had taken us so long to get there. And then I quit my job after the diagnosis, and I realized like she needs to be home, and she was able to do that. So then I start berating myself like she wasn't progressing because I wasn't there. I was at work all the time, working 40, 50 hours a week because I'm a single mom, and that's why she wasn't progressing. Which now I know that that's not what it was. It just wasn't the right time yet. And she needed more people in the team, and we didn't really know what we were working with. We were just trying to work on all the different pieces, all the different issues that was coming up. But when she got diagnosed, then we understood. So then we could attack it better. Um, but nothing will stop you from being guilty as a parent first, feeling guilt first. And that's because you're a good parent. If you don't feel guilty immediately the first instance, well, you're probably still a good parent, but I mean, I'm a great mom. I have been since I found out I was pregnant. I was a great mom to my little sister because I practically raised her. But I blamed myself. But with all the stress that was going on and my family treating me like garbage, and I just wanted to get away from them and take my daughter and just go somewhere else and have her own home. And there was even more stress over that. And then every car we got was a piece of shit. It kept breaking down. I couldn't afford it. It was just so much stuff building and building and building. And to the point that I had major sleeping issues for about 6 months. I would get maybe 2 hours of sleep a week. And I was scared to have to take any medicine because my daughter her seizures spike at night. And when she has seizures, it scares the living hell out of me. I'm afraid that if I take any sleeping medicine at night, it's going to knock me out so much that I'm not going to be able to hear her or respond if she goes into a seizure. So I would just suffer. I would only allow myself to take one sleeping pill. I would take Tylenol PM, one a week. And that was it, just the one time so I could get enough rest in that one night to relax. With one, I was able to get sleep, but I was still fully alert. I was able to jump up when needed. I didn't wake up groggy or anything like that. Um, but sometime in those 6 months, I think it was around the end of that 6 months because I had actually slept. I had the nightmare where I relived the thing that happened. It was like my mind was like, okay, now you're ready to deal with this. And it hit me with it. And I had literally forgotten about it. I had forced myself to forget about it. And then I had my daughter, and there was no way I could even have the time to remember it. Um, and then it just hit me. I woke up screaming. And I had that dream every night for a week. And that's when my panic attacks and anxiety attacks would start happening again because of the dream and because of all the stress that was going on in my life. And my daughter made me happy, but nothing else made me happy at the time. Everything else but my daughter brought me down and broke me, destroyed me. Um, to where I was crying all the time. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Um, then we got our own home, and the family abuse continued. But on top of that, I was starting to deal with the issue that had happened. Um, Talking to a couple friends I had about it and talking about it really helped. Um, but when we moved into our apartment here, Autumn was going on 3 years. I don't think she was quite 3 yet. I think she was about to turn 3. Um, and when we moved in, she had just started walking really good, and she was still getting used to it, still falling all the time, running into shit and all that. But and taking steps uh, was a task. But we have an upstairs apartment, and that's one of the reasons we got an upstairs apartment, because that way it would strengthen her legs, and plus the added safety of having upstairs. Um, I've done it on my own since day one. Even though we lived with my dad, he didn't help raise my daughter. He didn't help take care of her. He would only babysit her when I had to work and he was off. And even that was seldom because of all the issues we was having, and I can't trust my dad. Um, but then when we moved in here, she was walking and stuff, and she had gone through her terrible twos before, but she wasn't walking yet. So she was pretty much just stuck on the blanket in the middle of the floor with her toys. I wasn't able to go anywhere, so she was just whining a lot. And my daughter doesn't rarely cry at all, unless she's severely hurt. Um, but she'll like whine. And so her first bout of terrible twos, that's what she did. She just sat in the middle of the floor where she couldn't go anywhere and just whined. But then when we moved in up here, she got into the terrible twos again, and she was into everything. I mean, I had baby gates up, I had everything baby proofed. That's just how I am, regardless. Um, but she's a toddler, and it's just me. So she's going to get into shit. And I don't care what anyone tells you, you cannot watch your kid every second of the day and night. You can't. I know a lot of government officials, court, and CPS, everything will tell you that, oh, you wasn't watching your kid. You can't watch them every fucking second. You can't. It's impossible, especially as a single parent. There's been times like I've had bells on my doorknob for the 7 years that we've lived up here. It's about to be 8 years, I think, or about to be 7. I think it's 7 going on 8. I've had bells on my doorknob ever since we moved in up here because my toddler, when she was a toddler, would try to escape the apartment when I went to go take a pee. When I would go try to pee and use the bathroom for 2 seconds, she would try to run out of the apartment. And we have a steep staircase downstairs. So it would terrify me. Plus, I can't trust people. And if she falls and anything could happen, if she hits her head, she could have a seizure. It's just all kinds of stuff. Um, it got to the point, one point, that I wanted to stick the chain lock at the top of the door, but we're not allowed to do that because of emergency issues and stuff. But all the child lock stuff, my daughter can break out of. It's the adults that have issues with it. Kids could break out of it. I mean, she could break out of break a child lock thing in 10 seconds. Period. Um, but she started going through terrible twos and she didn't want to listen to anything, and you know how that is. And I was a single parent and I was worried about so much, and family and everybody was just belittling me and yelling at me and telling me I was a horrible mom and all kinds of shit constantly. So I would have breakdowns where I would just be on my knees in the floor in the living room crying, saying that I, I don't want to do it anymore. I give up. I shouldn't have to do this by myself anymore. Um, so that was a really hard time on my anxiety and panic attacks. And I continued smoking, but I would smoke whenever I would start getting anxiety or getting a panic attack, and it would help for a little while. And I would smoke it anytime I was relaxing or anything else. Hey, cats! Anyways, um, it was like a false correction. Um, 4 years ago, I broke up with my boyfriend at the time, and I quit smoking the very next morning. I trashed all the cigarettes I had, and I was just done. Um, I purged my apartment of all the clothes, everything else that we didn't need, and all kinds of stuff. That's when I started writing again. But when I officially quit smoking, this time lasting over that year threshold, I guess all the nicotine was finally out of my system, except for on the lungs, of course. I wish I had never done that to my lungs, but it was like the nicotine was finally absorbed out, well, released from my system everywhere else in my body, and my anxiety kicked in big time. My panic attacks kicked in big time, at least twice a week. And a big thing that would trigger my panic attacks would be certain family members. Um, 2 years ago, I decided to start working on myself. I started my self development journey. And I really started paying attention to my anxiety and panic attacks, when they would happen, what would be the trigger, how long they would last, what I would do or what would happen that would help pull me out of that. Um, I never wrote it down. I just did like a mental note, but now I wish I'd wrote it down because it would have been so much easier, and the process would have been faster than what it took. And that's why I made the anxiety and panic attack trackers. They are um just a fast segue. They are the trackers that I have in journal one of the self development journal series, um, Rewrite Your Story. Um, they're the same trackers. They're just in PDF form that's not the size and the color and all that from the journals. Um, and anybody that becomes a newsletter subscriber or any newsletter subscriber that is already subscribed, that is the first uh, instant digital freebies available to you now. So if you would like anxiety trackers or panic attack trackers, subscribe to my newsletter. Click the link in the description below and subscribe. And I am going to have the links to the trackers for the first time in the email on the 10th. That will be going out to all the newsletter subscribers with the first look of the cover. Well, the newsletter subscribers already got the first look of the cover of the memoir, but I will still always be sending them an email to let them know, like, hey, the reveal is in a few days. Again, here's the look. Don't let anybody know, but kind of celebrate with me or whatever. Um, so this time when I do that on the 10th, since the reveal is on the 15th, I'm going to have um, the links to the trackers in the email. So if you want those trackers, go subscribe to my newsletter. Um, Click the link in the description or go straight to my website at Nicole Heiser Writes and subscribe to my newsletter there. But that's why I created those trackers because I wish I'd wrote it down like that when I was first doing it, but it was all just mental notes and it would have been so much faster of a process and so much easier if I had wrote it down. But back then I wasn't doing like daily journaling or anything at the time. I was just getting back to writing, and creating those new habits have been a process. So um I didn't do that back then, but it's something that I really wish I had, and I'm glad that I have to give to you all now. Um, Sorry, I'm sticking to the chair. But I really started taking note of what triggered me. When was it? If it was around my period, or it had something to do with the retrograde or the moon. If it was a certain person, how long it lasted, what helped draw me out of it. I found for me personally, when I am having a panic attack, if I can talk to someone and just have a distracting conversation with someone, it helps me significantly to switch my mind to focus on something else, and eventually the panic attack will go away a lot faster. Now, if I am not able to talk to somebody, it takes longer. But almost every time I have anxiety now, it's because either the moon, the retrograde, or my periods, um, or if I'm in a crowd, or like a really long, windy road, because then it starts like messing with my vertigo and not morning sickness, goodness gracious, car sickness a little bit. So then I start getting a little bit of anxiety from that, but that's not much at all. But that's like my 5 triggers for anxiety. And moon, retrograde, period. Yeah, 3 of those 5 are natural causes from either my body or the universe. So those 3, which are usually the ones that trigger it unless it's my period. Yeah, the period works too. It's natural. uh, I'm forgetting everything I'm already said. But any of the natural causes for my anxiety, I immediately now recognize that that's what it is. And even if I'm like, well, my period's not starting for another like 3 or 4 weeks, uh, the moon's not doing anything weird. Uh, it's not full moon or a new moon. I'm not around the crowd or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what's doing this. I'll Google. Like, is there some sort of retrograde going on? And every time it's some sort of Mercury retrograde or some shit, and it fucks with me every time. But then I immediately recognize it and acknowledge that that's what it is, and the anxiety ceases, um, or dissipates. Um, Now my panic attacks. This I think that's one reason that I've been having so much trouble getting back into exercising because I'm a little bit worried I will go into a panic attack from the workout because I like doing cardio over anything else. And it has happened a few times. The last few times that I've tried working out, I've felt that constriction happen again. And I'm like, okay, I have to stop. I have to stop. Otherwise, it's going to get worse and we're going to a panic attack. So I got to chill. And I hate doing that. Um, but I have to listen to my body. Um, and the very last time that I went to the gym back before um, the pandemic, when I was at the gym, I started having a panic attack. I decided because my friend was with me and she was my ride, so we were at the gym together and she was still working out. I didn't want to stop her. I didn't want to bother her with my panic attack. And I didn't want me to be the reason we had to leave early. So I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to work through it. I'm going to keep going on with my workout. I'm just going to deal with it. But you got to listen to your body. And I was having a panic attack while I was working out. And it got to the point that I was crying as I was working out. And it was made worse when I started noticing a group of women, grown ass women, watching me, pointing at me, and laughing. And I know they were laughing at me because I took my uh, earbuds out and heard them say, "Look at that bitch crying while she's working out," amongst other things they were saying. And like I said, I don't like confrontation. I've I was majorly bullied all through middle school and almost all the way through high school. Um, abused from my mother and her husband, and I don't like confrontation. And that stuff really gets to me. And I was already having a panic attack, and they started doing that. And so, of course, my panic attack got worse. So I quit my exercise and I went to the bathroom, to the locker rooms, and I got ready to go. And I just sat there in the corner by the lockers and just listened to music and cried until my friend came in there. And she seen me and demanded to know what was wrong. And I wouldn't tell her what was wrong until we were in the car and leaving because she's the type that she would have went in there and fought every one of them. She would have got them kicked out and memberships gone. She would have got the workers that was supposed to be watching for bullying type of shit fired. All of it. But I didn't want any of that. I just wanted it to stop. I didn't want anybody to get in a fight or any arguments or confrontations. I just wanted it to stop. And if my panic attack had stopped, I would have stopped crying and the women would have probably left me alone. So it was me. I and it wasn't my fault. I know that now. I knew that then too, but it took me a long time to admit that to myself. But that was the last time I went to that gym. I just I couldn't go back there and face those women again. And I've been really cautious about working out heavily again because it has triggered a few more panic attacks since then. Um, if I have too much coffee, I can start getting shaky and my chest can start constricting and I'll go into a panic attack if I let it. But usually I'll feel it coming on. I'll feel the constriction and I'll be like, wait, it's 2 o'clock in the day. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning and all I've been drinking is coffee. I need water. I need to hydrate. I need to stop drinking so much damn coffee. I need to eat and fuel my body instead of the fake fuel caffeine. And then it ceases. After I eat, I hydrate and stuff, it goes away. But it's me recognizing and acknowledging that that's what it is, and then doing what I know I need to do to reverse it, and it'll fade away. Um, but I still had panic attacks until um, it's May now. The pandemic here didn't get really bad until February, March last year. Um, so I want to say like 8 months ago, until about 8 months ago, I was still having a like one panic attack a week, every other week. It just depended. Um, but one thing that always triggers my panic attacks is spiraling thoughts. When Sorry, I need to use chapstick, but I'm pretty sure my daughter took all mine. I just looked down there instead of up here. I'm sorry. Anyways, um, spiraling thoughts. When my ear's hurting for some reason, I don't understand. um, Sometimes I my thoughts will roam, and I'm always thinking of a million things at once. I always am. Um, but sometimes my thoughts will start to roam, and everything that anyone has ever said to me that was rude, mean, belittling, degrading, abusive, hurtful in any way, judgmental, anything like that. I will start thinking of each and every one of those things and hear them say it over and over and over until those thoughts spin in my head over and over and over and over and over, and I will spiral into a panic attack. And that's why I call it a spiral, because it's literally playing over and over and over in my head, going faster and faster and faster, going over and over until I sink into a panic attack. Just like a vortex of a twister, I'll sink into a panic attack. And the panic attack will hit and the spiral will get worse. It'll get out of control. And I'll start crying. I'll have a breakdown. I've had a panic attack a couple times so bad that I've thrown up. Um, and those are the worst ones. Those are the ones that, depending on who I have with me to talk to, if I have anyone with me, it's still not going to help. And those thoughts, that spiral, was almost always triggered by my father. 8 months ago, even though I was doing so much self development, even a little over a year at that time, it was so bad with my father that if he texted me, called me, showed up at my door, someone mentioned his name, or the thought of him popped in my head at all, I would go into a spiraling panic attack. I would physically shake. Sometimes I would throw up. It was to the point that his emotional abuse, his narcissistic emotional abuse, was so bad that it was no longer just affecting me emotionally and mentally, it was affecting me physically. All the stress and the anxiety and the panic attacks was wearing my body down so much, along with my mind and my soul, but also starting to wear down my body so much that I always hung over. I was never happy unless it was just smiling at my daughter. I was on the verge of crying at any given second. I gained a bunch of weight. Uh, a bunch of physical things start happening with my body, which some of them was attributed to me gaining weight, but some was attributed to added stress. And stress can kill you. It literally can kill you. And it was getting to the point that the emotional and mental abuse that turned in uh, emotional and mental consequences of his abuse was turning into physical consequences as well. I constantly felt like I was walking on eggshells even when he was miles away. Constantly thinking every second of the day that I have to make him proud. I have to be enough. That no matter what I do, it's never enough. It's never good enough. I'm a horrible mom. All these things running through my mind because he and everybody else put them there. Not everybody else, but you know what I mean. just the slightest thought of my father, his name, a text, a picture, a call, him showing up out of nowhere, which I told him multiple times, don't just show up out of nowhere. We're busy. We have a schedule with therapy and everything else. But he didn't care. And he would show up out of nowhere and he would get upset if I had company or something or I had other plans and couldn't drop everything to do what he wanted me to do. I mean, not just upset, like he would turn around, belittle me. There was a lot of things there. I'll go into that later on, but during another video. But it got to the point about 8 months ago that I realized I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was so bad, I was starting to think about cutting myself again. And I hadn't done that in a very long time. And to the point that one night, I had the knife in my hand. And I heard my daughter move in her bed while she was sleeping. And I put the knife up and vowed to myself I would never let anyone push me to that point again. Because I'm not leaving this world before I'm meant to. I am not abandoning my kid. She needs me. And I need her. I haven't let myself get to that point since. But my father and I had gotten into so many arguments. He would promise that he would change and not treat me like that anymore, that he would be different, that we could have a close relationship again like we did before my daughter was born. And he never actually even tried. Instead, he would turn it around and blame me, saying I did something wrong or I wasn't doing it right or it didn't matter because he was right, I was wrong, and he was always going to be right no matter what. And even when it came to my daughter, that I didn't have a right to tell him what he could or could not do regarding my daughter. I had tried everything I could with him. I had lost and cut ties with almost every person in my family on both sides throughout my life because they were toxic. And I didn't want to lose him too. My daughter loves him. I didn't want my daughter to grow up without family around her. And I had tried and tried and tried, and he wasn't at all. And I had already been getting so much shit from people in my life for not talking to my mother. I haven't spoken to my mother since I took my sister from her and got her put in my custody, and I got her and her husband put in jail. I haven't spoke to them since we went to court against them. And that was like 2 years before my daughter was even conceived. The things that happen in our life, I do not want my daughter to be around that in any way, shape, or form. And I had so many people throughout my life, they still say it now, but I limit my time around those people. But they say that it doesn't matter, she's your mom. Even the ones that know exactly everything that happened. It doesn't matter, she's your mom, you don't give up on family. But when your family doesn't even treat you like family, your well being is worth more than that. I don't care if they're your family. Love should not be conditional. There's so many times you'll hear in your life, I love you unconditionally. You'll hear in advertisements for rings, for engagement rings, and all kinds of shit. But you don't hear people talk about conditional love. That's what my family has given me my entire life. Conditional love. Love only when met with certain conditions, when things are done right in their eyes, done the way they want it to be done in their eyes, when they get something out of it, and the list goes on. Real love is not conditional, period. I love my daughter with no conditions on this earth or the universe. There is nothing in this world that would stop me from loving my daughter. But there are plenty of things that stop them from loving me. I cut out many of them. I cut ties with almost all of my family because they were toxic. Now, some family members, I didn't completely cut ties with them, but I didn't go around them because the other ones, like my mother, would be around them all the time, and I could not risk me showing up and her being there and I could not risk me showing up with my daughter and her being there. And those particular type of family members that I'm talking about, they completely understood that, and we communicated in other ways because they supported my decision at that. 8 months ago, I knew that I was going to have to cut ties with my father because nothing was changing. It was getting worse. New things had happened, and instead of standing by my side as a supportive father should, he turned it around on me and said that it had to be my fault in some way, and I was making it a bigger deal than it was. And it was not a small thing, it was a very big thing. And I'll explain that in a separate video too. We're already an hour and a half in. But I knew for my well-being as well as my daughter's, I was going to have to cut ties with my father. I did not want my daughter growing up thinking that the way he treated me was okay. I didn't want her to grow up thinking that it was okay for anyone else to treat her like that. And I didn't want her to grow up thinking that it was okay for her to treat someone else like that. I need to be a role model for my daughter. I need to show her self-love. I need to show her unconditional love, safety, loyalty, honesty, trust. Even with all of this, those friends who said that I should still talk to my mother because she's my mom were in the back of my head. I knew that they would say the same thing about my dad. And I didn't want to give up on my dad. Ah, get down. 1 second. Leave it be. Cats. But I didn't want to give up on my dad and think that he was never going to change. But so I came out as bisexual to my friends and to my online community. I hadn't came out to my family yet. So I told him I was bisexual. And he did what he always does. Said that I was messed up in some way, that was just a phase, that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I was a bad influence on my daughter, I was a bad mom, all these things. And more. and that was the last straw. I had known that I was bisexual. Well, I didn't know I was bisexual, but I knew I was into women my entire adult life since I was in high school. But some stuff just didn't click, and I didn't realize I was bi. I just thought that I liked women too. That's a whole nother discussion. At least that was a lighthearted, funny one. Yeah, that's mainly a funny discussion. But I had known that I was bi for years and decided I wasn't going to hide that part of myself anymore when I started doing my self development. And I told my friends, I told my online community, my platforms, and everyone was super supportive of me and my preferences, all of it. And I ended up being included in the LGBTQ community and got some new friends and everything. I When I told him I was bi and he reacted in the same way he always does, I decided I was not going to refuse to be who I am to satisfy him. No matter what I do, it's not going to change how he looks at me. But 8 months ago, I start realizing that even though no matter what I do, it's not going to change how he looks at me, that's a him issue. That's not a me issue. It doesn't matter what the hell anyone else thinks about me, says about me, or feels about me. If it's not my daughter, doesn't matter. How I feel about myself, how my daughter feels about me, is the most important things. And at that moment, 8 months ago, I decided that I was going to start caring more about how I felt than how he or anyone else felt. Except for my daughter, of course. She's always number one. But I had put myself on the back burner behind everyone else my entire life. My daughter came first, everyone else after that, me on the very last. Which meant my needs, my feelings, my wants never got attended to, intended to, never got tended to. um, but 8 months ago, I decided that I'm pushing everyone back in the line. My daughter goes first. I go right behind her. Everyone else, they're not even on the stove anymore. Because I cannot be there for my daughter the way that she deserves me to be there for her if I don't take care of myself first. If I am not mentally, emotionally, physically okay, if I am not well and happy, I cannot help her to be that too. And I cut ties with him. He didn't like it. I got plenty of yelled painful words at me, both in person when he left and in text and calls afterwards, to the point that I had him blocked for a little while. Now he's in the spam folder, so I only see it when I want to see it. And I cut ties. He still, the last message I seen, he still thinks that he wasn't in the wrong at all for what he did. He did do something very wrong. And he, from his last message, he said that no matter what I want, I don't have a right to keep my daughter from him. And with the stuff that happened, yes, the hell I do. And the way he treats me, yes, the hell I do. Because I ain't letting him treat her like that. I ain't letting him be around her and speak or be treating anyone in that way ever again. No. My daughter deserves better than that. And so do I. And in the last 8 months, well, I'll say 7 months, because the first month after I cut ties with him, I was still getting a bunch of texts and phone calls and stuff. It was before I officially blocked him and put him in spam. I still had a lot of anxiety and panic attacks and stuff, and I was still, even though I cut ties with him, I was still trying to believe like he wasn't going to just show up out of nowhere and show his ass, and which he's that type of jerk. He would do that, even with kids involved. Um, but for the last 7 months, I've had one panic attack. Only one. And that was because the pandemic and my daughter's school. Um, and it was just completely unexpected, out of left field, and just stuff that happened and was said and stuff. And they were completely in the wrong, and they said some stuff they wasn't supposed to, and they got into a lot of trouble about it, and just all kinds of stuff. But that put me into a panic attack for about an hour. But that is the only panic attack I've had in 7 months since I cut ties with my father. I was still having at least one panic attack every week or every other week at that time. He was a major trigger for me. And now, when I officially felt like I didn't have to bother with him anymore, a huge weight was lifted. And it was one of the scariest and hardest things I've ever had to do, cut ties with my dad. But it was a leap that I needed to take. The stress would have killed me if I hadn't. I just realized when eh, when I was 6, I said that I wanted to be a mom, a wife, a writer, and then when I got to be about like 11, I said I wanted to be a published author. Not famous, just a published author. That was my 4 lifelong goals, lifelong dreams. When I finished writing my first book, that's when I really felt like I could give myself the title of a writer. When I published my first book, I felt like I could give myself the title of author, published author. When I conceived my daughter, I was officially a mom. I know some people don't believe in it that way, but to me, I was a mom that instant, period. Still not a wife, don't know if that's in my cards. I've tried. I don't know if it's going to ever happen, but the universe will let me know. From what the universe says, it is destined to happen. Well, I don't know if it's destined, but it will happen just when the timing's right. The card said that I have to get to that level first, but it will happen. Um, so that just affirms my hopes. Um, but that's 4 lifelong dreams. When I was still living at my dad's, my daughter was asleep at her crib, taking her nap for the day. Everything else was done. And I sat down and started writing. I've always wanted to be a writer, and I was like, you know what? I want to start writing again. I hadn't written since I was a teenager. My dad came in the room to see what we were doing. I told him, and he said, give up on your silly little dream. It's never going to happen. You're always going to be poor. You're never going to write a book. You're never going to sell a book. And you're never going to be an author. It's a silly little dream. Grow up and be a mom. I didn't write another word until 4 years ago. It hurt me that bad. I cut ties with my dad 8 months ago, officially 7 months ago. I published my first book November last year. I published my second book February this year. My memoir and 3 of my fiction books are still coming out this year. Last week, I finished writing my 6th book. 7 months ago, I decided that I wasn't going to let anyone else dictate what my dreams will or will not be. I started working on my self development even more. 6 months ago, I started working on my spiritual journey even more. And now I'm creating the life of our dreams. Period. We're enjoying the journey. I've accomplished 3 of my lifelong dreams. And I'm still accomplishing more and more each day. Something that I'm starting to remind myself of all the time is I am already a success. I have done so much self development work, and cutting ties with toxic relationships is part of that work, that I have managed my anxiety attacks, my panic attacks, my depression. I have worked through my trauma, my PTSD, so many things. I am making the changes that I need to in my life to continue to level up in my life. I am changing the statistics. I grew up in a broken home around addiction, abuse, domestic violence. The statistics say that I am more likely to end up repeating that path. The statistics don't have anything on me. I chose a different path, a path towards my dreams. And I'm working towards my dreams every day, and I'm getting closer and closer, leveling up continuously throughout my journey and enjoying the view as I go. Now, if you have anxiety or panic attacks, I feel you. I get it. Fucking sucks. But you're not alone. Start taking note of what your triggers are, when it happens, how long it lasts for, and what different things pull you out of that. And then when you are in a panic attack or an anxiety attack, remember those. Even if you have to pull out that list, remember those and start going through all the things that usually pull you out of it. Start going through it one by one until you come out of it on the other end. Over time, and it will take a little bit of time, they will be less frequent, they will be shorter, and you will be in more control. I can't promise you that they'll go away forever. It's not a cure. I don't know if anxiety and panic attacks ever truly go away, but we can learn to manage them. We can learn what works for us personally to pull ourselves back into reality. we can use those to do so. And we can improve our lives in the process. And that's my biggest tip, is to take note of this. Subscribe to my newsletter and you'll get the free anxiety tracker and panic attack tracker. But if you don't want to do that, that's perfectly okay. You can make your own. I mean, I made these. Um, and when I started paying attention to it, I just did mental notes. Though now I really wish I had wrote them down like these in the tracker, so that it would have been easier and the process would have been faster. But you're welcome to the trackers, but do it in your own way. Our journeys are a personal journey. That's why they call it a personal self development, because your self development is a personal journey that each aspect of it is going to be unique to you. What works for me may not work for you, but I want to give you the tips and advice that I have that's helped me, in hopes that at least something of it will help you. So that's why I'm doing these Sunday chats and having these discussions, because I want to be the person for you that I didn't have throughout my life. And it is a process. I've been doing this self development journey for 2 years now, and it's been a really long, hard 2 years. But it has also been two of the best years of my life. And I can tell you right now, the last 5 or 6 months, I have been happier than I have ever been in my entire life. And what's more than that, I have been happy more often than I have been my entire life. And that's crazy to me to even think about, because, I mean, it's the truth. I am so incredibly happy in my life right now. I've cut toxic relationships. I am taking leaps towards things that sometimes I still doubt that I can have, but I am still going for it. And I am trying right now to focus on switching that mindset so that I push past my upper limits, so that when a great opportunity comes my way that I would absolutely love to do, because it would be a dream, but my immediate first reaction to it is that would be amazing, but I can't afford it. I can't get a sitter. I don't even have a car. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm trying to focus on, okay, I'm going to recognize that feeling, let it flow away from me, and switch it. Instead of, that would be amazing, but that would be amazing, so I'm going to go for it. Even if nothing happens, I'm still going to go for it, because it's not going to happen if I don't at least do it. If I don't at least try. So, I am going for a lot more than I have in my past, because my doubts of my deserving and my worthiness have gotten in my way. My upper limits instilled in me from my family has stopped me from reaching so many of my dreams and my goals. But now I'm changing that. Just recently, and opportunity came up, and it's something that I've dreamed about, something that would be phenomenal if it would happen. And my immediate thought was, like, I seen it on YouTube, this thing, and it was at the end of the video, and I paused the video, and I was like, that would be amazing, but I started thinking about other things. I don't have anybody that can watch my kid for that long, and I can't afford a plane ticket or the stay. I can't afford my part of the money. I can't afford even a car right now. I'm negative in my bank account right now. I can't do this. But I immediately recognized my upper limits, smashing my head on it, recognized it, let it flow, and was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. Even if nothing happens, I'm gonna go for it. That would be amazing. So I'm gonna go for it and see what happens. That's what I'm changing it to. And I left that tab, went and applied for it, came back, and one of the big things that I was worried about, it would be amazing, but I was worried I would be judged because my teeth. And when I came back to the video, on the side on YouTube where it says, like the video, and then it has the suggested videos beside it. Right next to it is a video from the same person from years ago, from about 2 months before I first found this person on YouTube, getting her teeth fixed. And it was a sign that I know that she and the rest of these people would never judge my teeth like that. They would never judge me like that. That was me judging me. And you know what's crazy? This whole interchange of thought, from seeing it on the video, pausing it, saying that would be amazing, but all the negative, switching it to a positive, applying, and then coming back and seeing that video and recognizing it for what it was as a sign, all happened in a matter of 2 minutes. I checked the time. 2 minutes. And I had an immediate high from it afterwards, because that was one of the first times since I read Gay Hendricks' The Big Leap about upper limits that I had purposely broke through my upper limit. And it's not something that you just change overnight. All of the self development stuff that you have to go through does not change overnight. It is actively working towards that thing daily. Actively working towards that thing daily in order to have success. That's it. So I'm still going to hit my head on my upper limit, but the more often that I break through it, because I let those recognize those emotions and thoughts, let it flow through me, push it away and replace it with positive energy and go for it, I break through my upper limit. And eventually, breaking through it so often, it's going to be so weak that it's not even going to be a wall there anymore. That's how that works. It takes time, but you have to actively work towards it daily in order to see progress. And that's what I'm trying to focus on right now in my self-development. I'm still working on everything else. It's sort of like I have a list of things that I do every day, every week that I do for my self-development. Sorry, there's a hair on my nose. I can feel it. But there's a list of stuff that I do every day, every week for my self-development. And I just continuously add to that list, and every day or every week, depending on what the thing is, I work on that thing actively. The entire list. I just continue to add more things to the list and continue to go. That's how personal development progress works. And that's how I've learned how to manage my anxiety and panic attacks by actively working on it daily until I see progress. And I'm still actively working on it constantly. Even though I haven't had a panic attack in 7 months, except for the one, that doesn't mean I stop working on my panic attacks. That means that I have worked on the reason for my panic attacks. But if I don't continuously work on that reason, and like if I go back to that toxic relationship with my dad, the panic attacks are going to come back. If I I don't know, if I get back in a if I get into a toxic relationship with a boyfriend, or if I am in around a heated confrontation that ends up in a fist fight, I'm still going to get shaky and get anxiety and possibly into a panic attack. But if I continuously work on teaching myself how to not really avoid that, but reverse that, so that if I'm around it, it doesn't affect me, that's progress. It's a never ending journey. Just like our lives, it's never ending. Even when we're gone, myself, I don't think we end just like that. I'm going to be continuously working on my self development for the rest of my life because I want to have the best life I can absolutely have. I want to make all of our dreams come true. And yes, I have already accomplished 3 of my 4 lifelong dreams, but I'm adding to that list. I'm writing bucket lists. I am trying to create a life of my dreams and the life of my daughter's dreams. That's how progress and development works. And we can all have it. You can have the life of your dreams if you continue to actively work towards it. It is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a lot of work. There's tears. There's tired days and sore muscles. But there's so much joy. There's a weight lifted. You deserve to live a life of your dreams without stress, without constant anxiety, without constant panic attacks, without depression. You deserve to make all the money you want. You deserve to be happier than you've ever been in your entire life. You deserve to be happier more often than you have ever been in your entire life. You deserve to let everything holding you back flow away from you, taking the weight off of you, taking the stress, taking the pain. You deserve to be happy, successful, and everything you've always wanted. You deserve that life. You deserve love, trust, loyalty. You deserve to feel safe. I hope that I can give you the inspiration to start your journey, to choose a different path, demolish the statistics, and to create the life of your dreams. Because you can have it too. I have a pretty great life. I'm enjoying this life now more than I have ever had, and I've lived here for 7 years. But I truly enjoy our apartment and our life. I'm enjoying the view as we live in this level of our lives as I actively work towards the next level. And I hope you do too. So, if you would like the trackers, click the link in the description, like I said, and subscribe to my newsletter. And I really, really do hope that you have a great night and you find joy in your life again because you deserve that. And love yourself because you deserve your love. You truly do. That's it from me tonight, y'all. So,